Hello, welcome back. I just watched some really good animation. I'm very excited. That doesn't happen too often, that I find something brand new that's just inventive and original and very well executed. It's the Pokétoons. So the Pokétoons it's a series of short films that they've been doing since, I think 2020, but we're still getting some every once in a while. They're planning to continue releasing Pokétoons. Each short is completely standalone. It focuses on like different characters, different settings, different Pokemon for the most part. A lot of the shorts have been spread out across different animation studios. They are all Japanese animation studios as far as I've seen. I will mention specific studios as we get into the shorts. I'm just here to rank them. I'm here to rank the shorts, every one that I've been able to find so far. I found 8. This leads into my little intro section. I'll try to put timestamps below if you want to like skip ahead to the ranking part or whatever. I'll be talking about each short in detail as I go through my list. But first, I would like to talk about the baffling circumstances surrounding the release of these cartoons, because the only place they released these in any official capacity, as far as I know, was on the Pokemon Kids Japan YouTube channel. It's fine. I mean, it makes sense. Of course, kids in Japan who would want to see these cartoons. But you know who else wants to see these cartoons is literally every Pokemon fan in the world, basically. But no, I have not seen any uploads that like have titles in English even are just re-uploads. People are like, hey, no one else is doing this. I guess I'll upload it with an English title. There are English captions in the official uploads, which I do appreciate, although some of the translations don't seem very good. I mean, and I'm not an expert. I don't speak Japanese. I don't read Japanese, but you can tell sometimes, just based on being a Pokemon fan, you can tell when certain things haven't been translated as well as they could have been, and they don't really make sense. For the most part, it's fine. But anyway, even when I try to look these up, okay, there's a Wikipedia article for the Pokétoons, but there's only 6 of them listed there, so I guess no one's been updating that. There's very little information available there, and even on Bulbapedia, which is a massive Pokemon wiki, for one thing, it's like, oh, there's no official English title for this article. There's very little information there as well. I tried to translate some of the credits just through Google Translate, and I got some information through that, but overall, I'm just very, very disappointed that they've made it this difficult for fans who don't speak Japanese to engage with this stuff in any real way. And I never saw this stuff recommended to me on YouTube. I watched a ton of stuff about Pokemon on YouTube. Never came up. Maybe YouTube was like, well, why would you want to see a Japanese channel? You don't speak Japanese. And that does tip off, like, I have a lot of problems with the Pokemon Company and with Game Freak. And I don't want to rant on this for too long because I'm sure you've heard a lot of this elsewhere online and elsewhere on YouTube. Leadership at these companies, just based on their actions, seems to be extremely out of touch with the actual audience of Pokemon. They don't seem to be willing to put in a lot of effort or time or money into basically any of the games that they've been releasing in the last 5 to 6 years. I don't know. There's so little effort happening. I keep looking at that Legends Arceus trailer, and it looks like absolute junk. It's one of the ugliest things I've seen in a long time, and I don't understand. They have one of the strongest brands in existence, and they are constantly self-sabotaging, and it can't last forever. I know all the Pokemon stuff still sells really well, regardless of quality. I know there are plenty of people out there willing to defend whatever these companies do. There's going to be a point where people just get fed up with receiving such bad games that are just of such poor quality. Honestly, this ties into Pokétoons because this is the answer. This is something that I've talked about on a number of different occasions, where you have these giant media companies. I don't care if it's a video game company or a giant movie studio or whatever, but these giant companies have just swallowed up tons of IPs. Disney's an obvious example, media companies just eating each other up. The biggest video game companies, hang on to the most valuable properties. When they put all their chips on just a few mainline products, whether it's movies or games or whatever, there's a huge risk of those failing, especially if they weren't well managed or well executed. Do a bunch of smaller projects. If you let a bunch of different people share their takes on a property, it's basically the best thing you could ever do from both in terms of the health of a property in the eyes of the public and the fan base, and also in terms of sourcing of profitability of certain ideas. A good example is the Star Wars Visions series on Disney Plus, where they just let a bunch of anime studios do their own episode in the Star Wars universe, and all of a sudden we're getting these really cool ideas that are based on the lore and the canon, but there's so much variety, and there's so much visual variety as well, and flair and style. Pixar with the Spark shorts, all of a sudden you get an idea of what people are into. You can see how audiences respond to each of these ideas, and then based on that response, you can pursue those ideas even further. If you want to grow one of these shorts into an entire series, you can do it, and you didn't spend that much money to find out what people like. You didn't have to do a bunch of market research. You just release these little tiny projects that probably cost relatively little money to make when compared to the huge mainline products. It's just a good business move, and it's also good for the fan base because it keeps things lively. The fan base gets more variety than they'll tend to get, and I think that the Pokétoons are a huge arrow pointing to an excellent option for the Pokemon Company, for Game Freak, in terms of finally moving this franchise forward in any way, whether it's the shows or the games. I don't care. Like, this is how we get good ideas. This is how we get some kind of life injected into very, very old properties, very stale properties. Anyway, that's my rant. Now I'm going to talk about the Pokétoons that I've seen so far and rank them from sort of my least favorite to my most favorite. And overall, they're wonderful. Like, I had such a fun time going through each and every one of them. And even when I was making up my list and the ranking, which is it's useless, but it's an internet thing, I was switching stuff around. I'll even show a picture of like some of my notes here. But like I was like watching one, I was like, oh no, I really like this one now. Maybe I should put this further up the list. This is so much fun. Oh, the visuals are so cool. So it's very flexible, but right now this is the order that I've put them in. And we're going to get things started with number 8, which is Purin's song, or Jigglypuff's song. I think Purin is the Japanese name, right, for Jigglypuff. The premise is pretty basic. You have this girl just finds a Jigglypuff hanging around, I suppose, and is like, hey, you're my Jigglypuff now. Whatever, that's the Pokemon world. Her snobby friend has a Jigglypuff that can sing real pretty, and but this other girl's Jigglypuff, she sings in like kind of a weird way, and so it feels very self-conscious. It doesn't want to sing anymore. It doesn't feel accepted. Yeah, pretty basic storyline, very basic themes of like self-acceptance and it's okay to be different and that kind of stuff. Visually, this does seem like they're using 3D character models on top of backgrounds. It's okay, like it doesn't jump out to me as like a bad look, but it does seem a little awkward at times. I kind of just wanted to see 2D character models and have that be that. This is from Studio Goonies, I think is what I found. I don't know. I've never heard of them, but it looks okay. I mean, it's a pretty standard color palette. It's pretty light. Lots of pastels going on in this one. Yeah, honestly, I don't have too much else to say about it. Eventually, this Jigglypuff accepts itself and accepts its own singing style, and so does everyone else, and it's a happy ending. Pretty simple. It's one of the shorter ones as well. It's fine. Number 7, Pancham, who wants to be a hero. Kind of an awkward translation, but I do think it's accurate. This comes from Studio Pancake. So this one is very much like a storybook style. There's no real lines, it's just colors for everything. Colors and shapes. You get, generally speaking, very little movement. So you'll have these stills of each scene, each environment, and then the characters kind of move every once in a while. There will be certain elements of the scene that move more fluidly, but for the most part, it's pretty static. It's a cute story, even from the title, you can probably guess the storyline, but yeah, there's this Pancham, and he looks up to an Arcanine. He's like, an Arcanine saved me once, and now I want to be heroic too. I want to help people out. So he trains. It's very cute because he's a tiny little bear. The pacing is very slow, and that's felt all the more because the short is one of the longest, I think, in the group. And I did get bored This is definitely one of the most boringest stories, even though the plot itself is kind of neat. I don't know if people care about like spoilers for these. I guess I'm just giving spoilers, but yeah, the Pancham ends up evolving and saving the day. Cool, man. Sort of a heartwarming story, saves some miners, but it is beautiful. I mean, it's really good for like screen caps if you want like a really pretty kind of Pokemon world themed screen cap or background for your computer or your phone. It's pretty good for that. It's very pleasant to look at. And that's all I've got to say on that one. Okay, number 6, we have Scraggy and Mimikyu, which is not a good title. It says nothing about what's happening. This was the first Pokétoon, and I do think it's one of the most famous still, and one of the most popular, because it is very obviously mimicking and homaging, golden era American animation, so Fleischer era animation, Tex Avery, and of course we saw this style used in Cuphead. It's very clearly sort of aping off the success of Cuphead and the renewed interest in this style of heavily detailed and heavily stretchy, squashy animation. The storyline is fine. I mean, like those old Tex Avery cartoons and a lot of the early Hanna-Barbera stuff and Warner Brothers stuff. It's just visual comedy. You have two characters who don't even speak, and yeah, they're just kind of locking horns with each other, just kind of messing around. There's a lot of goofy visuals. I don't think that it was a 100% genuine or authentic take on this style of animation. It still did feel kind of stiff. It's definitely nowhere near the level of detail and movement that you'll get in Cuphead. So it was a little disappointing along those lines. And like I said, the story is really nothing special. It's pretty short. It just kind of ends. It's just not quite as memorable to me as many of the other ones. Okay, 5. These are the ones that I switched around, so I really have to get it right here. Number 5 is Wait Here, Magikarp, I think. Again, translation. So this is from Studio Colorido. They've done quite a few of the Pokétoons, including many of my favorites here, so keep them in mind, I suppose. There's no dialogue in this one. It's just a kid, plays like a flute, other musical Pokemon are involved, and basically he charms a Magikarp who becomes his friend. Of course, the Magikarp ends up evolving into Gyarados at the very end, and that's it. It's a very short one. I think that makes sense given the fact that there's no dialogue, and the art style is cool. It's definitely one of the more distinctive art styles in the Pokétoons series. Very loose lines, really neat looking little character designs. I also just like the idea of communicating with Pokemon non-verbally. Do you know what I mean? Like the idea that Pokemon are also just into music. It makes a lot of sense to me. It feels like it fits that universe very well. The colors used here are fantastic. There are a number of scenes that are just almost monochromatic palettes, I would say. And just some really cute touches. In fact, one of my favorite touches is at the very end when it evolves into Gyarados and he's just hanging out. He's just hanging out, listening to the music, and he's slapping his tail along to the music. And I was like, that's great. I like this. It's just a very nice little Pokemon story, like most of these. And I happen to enjoy it a lot more than some of the other ones, that's all. Number 4 is A Budding Dream. Now, a friend tried to help me with some translation stuff here. Thanks, Molly, if you happen to watch this. Okay, so a more literal translation of this one would be Tsubomi's Dream. Now, Tsubomi is the main character here. She's a little kid who wants to become a trainer. Both her parents are former trainers, which I think is a fantastic idea, fantastic little touch, the idea that trainers just kind of retire at some point. They're like, I'm good. I'm just going to be domestic now. That's kind of fun. A sort of better or more like evocative translation here is A Budding Dream. And as it turns out, I guess Tsubomi, I think Tsubome is a bullet train line. There's something with that. It was in Mirai. Remember Mirai? Yeah, Tsubomi means bud, I guess, so there is some wordplay happening here with the character's name. But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. She's starting to become a person. She wants to strike out into the world and make a name for herself and follow her dream and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely the most traditional Pokemon storyline in terms of what we've gotten from the series for over 20 years. You have a trainer. It's a little kid, probably like 10 years old, who's going to go out in the world and have adventures and make Pokemon friends and all that kind of stuff. Go up against challenges. It's also one of the longest ones. I think it's just over 15 minutes long. And yeah, that very traditional storyline is a little bit, in a way, it's less interesting to me because I like these more personal stories that we've been getting from some of the other shorts. And in this one, it just, I don't know. There's also an aspect of it that's very comfortable because, of course, I've been playing the game since Gen 1. I was there. I was there at the beginning, and I definitely connect with that story still, for sure, even though it's been reused to the point of inanity. Is that a word? Inanity. But we do still get some really nice soft world building from this, and from many of the shorts, including some of the ones I'll be talking about in a bit. But here, like I said, the idea that you have retired trainers, we're just kind of hanging out now, just living a normal life. That's great. The kid's dad, his starter, well, I'm sure at one point a Charmander, but was Charizard when he was at his peak. And now you just have this Charizard, this elderly Charizard snoozing in the front lawn, and it's the most wonderful thing. I love old animals to begin with, just old, like, tired animals. But then to see one here that's just hanging out, just kind of over everything, like, nah. And it's also still a Charizard, so of course it's moody. It doesn't listen to everyone. It's doing its own thing. I just thought that was fantastic. And yeah, the story, okay, this kid ends up with a Nidoran, and it becomes their friend. The parents of the Nidoran are like, hey, you can't just take our kid. But eventually they're like, oh, whatever. She's proved herself as a trainer. They're going to go on adventures. It's fine. It's cute. It's cute. It's definitely one of the most action-y episodes here. And it's fine. It's fine. There's also a really funny moment where the little girl is about to set out. She's like, I'm going to catch my first Pokemon. And she just rolls up in the store and fills a whole basket full of Pokeballs. She's got this look on her face like, yeah, what? And it works for the story, but it also, I don't know, it reminded me of playing the games. I'm like, oh, I gotta catch this Pokemon. I'm just gonna buy 15 Pokeballs, hope for the best. I mean, probably Ultra Balls more realistically, but you get the idea. It's lovely. It's a lovely little short. It's one of my favorites. Number 3, Summer Vacation Blizzard is the rough translation here, and it's about a bunch of kids who I guess are on summer vacation, and they have this little hideout fort where they're hanging out and having a great time, and they find a Snorunt. That one was after my time. Is that like Gen 3 or 4 or something? I don't know. It's a cute little like ice type Pokemon just from a snowy environment, whatever. Very cute voice acting for the Pokemon too. Beautiful visuals. This is another one where you don't really have lines. There are no outlines. You just have colors for everything. And the brushes used for some of the background elements and foreground elements, it's maybe like maybe like a charcoal brush of some kind, because you get those lovely gaps in different objects and stuff you'll see in the background. It definitely looks, I don't know, more natural. For studios, it said Pancake and Mimoid. Again, I have no idea what roles each studio played. This one isn't even listed on the Wikipedia page for the Pokétoons. I don't know. It was hard to find information. Yeah, definitely one of the prettiest Pokétoons, I think, and absolutely the best music of anything. It's kind of like almost sounds like improvisational, not jazz exactly, but jazzy keys in the background. Very pretty. Some memorable melodic lines in there too. And yeah, the way that they handle like light in particular, there's some moments with a flashlight that are just wonderful to look at. And sometimes environments will sort of, as a transition, they'll have environments sort of form with like liquidy sound effects and stuff, and it's gorgeous. They do some similar stuff in Ernest et Célestine, the French animated movie that I love so much. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and also in general, I think that like I'm just a sucker for like animal in need stories where there's a little animal and it needs help or else it's going to be in real trouble. That's how you got here. Yeah. But that's about it for that. It's lovely. It definitely deserves its spot in the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. And now we're on to number 2, which is the warm and cozy Slugma house. Slugma, I remember. He was Gen 2, right? But this one is one of my favorites because, for one thing, it's probably the closest to a Ghibli style of animation, or just tone and atmosphere. Everything is very calm. Everything's very domestic. You're just out in the woods somewhere, out in a natural space. You have this incredibly cozy cabin, and yeah, there's this little girl, and she wants to be friends with the Slugma who lives in this house. He literally like lives in the pipes and heats up the oven or the stove when they need it, and the fireplace and all this kind of stuff, and they take care of him, so it's a nice little relationship. But it's sort of shy, and it doesn't want to hang out with her all the time, and so she kind of has to, grow this relationship with the Pokemon. It's beautifully done. It's very low key. It's pretty short, and it's definitely not the most interesting interesting storyline of any of the Pokétoons, but I still enjoyed it very much, and it has so much of that incredibly practical world building that we just don't get from like the anime or even many of the games. We don't get a good sense of how humans and Pokemon actually function and live together, whereas here we got like an Ariadnos and a what's the little one, Spinarak or something, just hanging out on the couch helping grandma do some knitting or something. Like that's great. That's so cool. And Slugma just chilling, he just cruises around the house for every once. It's all right. He knows he's gonna get his, like, they feed him like fruit and vegetables. It's like, okay, whatever, man. He seems happy. And yeah, it's very cozy. It's very intimate, very warm, both visually and in terms of the story itself. It's wonderful. But my favorite of all, my favorite Pokétoon so far, and I think that the internet might agree with me because I think it's at like 5.8 million views at this point, is I Became a Gengar, which I think is one of the most recent releases as well. This is Studio Colorido. Again, it's basically perfect. It has some of the most open spaces of any of the shorts, set in a school, probably an elementary school, and you have these kids, and there's a very believable kid legend in this school that up the spirit steps, there's one step the sunlight never touches, even during sunset, and that's where if you step up there, you're transported into the ghost world, the world of ghost Pokemon, and you won't be able to come back. And I was like, that's perfect. That's very believable. It's so specific, and it just makes sense for something that kids would tell each other. And again, it makes me believe that this is a world where Pokemon actually exist, and that's just part of the experience of being a person. We get the golden hour lighting early on, and then it's mostly, cool colors when it switches to night or the spirit world. But yeah, basically this very shy girl sort of accidentally gets transported to the ghost world, hangs out with some talking ghost Pokemon. I love that we get some talking Pokemon here, but it doesn't break canon because she's in their world, so it makes sense. It's also just a very cute collection of Pokemon. We get Dreepy from, I think he's Gen 8, and Gengar, of course, and the main girl becomes a Gengar, as you can tell from the title. It's adorable. It's definitely the funniest short of all of them, because you have this premise then of like, oh, she's trying to see her friends again, but now she's a spooky Pokemon, and everything she does is like accidentally scary and comes across like a haunting. So the kids are freaking out. She's like, no, it's cool. I mean, I can't speak English, but like, it's all fine. And in general, this is one of the prettiest things I've seen in animation for a good long while. Apart from the lighting, the character animation here is so fantastic. I love the character designs to begin with. We kind of get those loose lines like we've seen in some of the other shorts, but the way they move and the way that you get a sense of depth and 3D movement from 2D characters it's kind of incredible to me, and I don't see that very often. It just kind of had me stunned the whole time, and on top of that, you just have this wonderful, cute little storyline with great pacing. It never really slows down or gets boring, and a very funny little conclusion where they all have to help each other to save the kids and keep them from being trapped in the spirit world forever. It's just wonderful, and it's so much fun to watch. I've been rewatching it almost constantly since yesterday when I first came across it, and this was the short that inspired me to watch the rest of the Pokétoons. I was originally just going to talk about this one because it's so wonderful. I think I really do have to stop there. I've said enough gushing things about the Pokétoons. Again, I really do think this is a positive move to let other people share their interpretations of a property, of a fictional world, fictional characters. It just opens everything up so much. It's just like getting a fresh spring breeze in a stale attic or something like that. Whatever, metaphors. It's really wonderful. If you have not seen these yet for some reason, I highly, highly recommend them. It's just great. And of course, whatever YouTube-y stuff, feel free to mention your favorite one. What do you like? What's your favorite Pokemon? That's all for now. Thanks for stopping by.